What's up my loves? My name is Paige, this is Pages with Paige, and today we're going to be doing my January wrap up. So welcome to my new setup. Ash and I have moved house. This is the first video I'm filming here and I'm really excited. There will be some camera changes while I get this all sorted out, and yeah. So for today, this is what we're going with. I want to cover this wall and make that a little bit more something, a little less barren. But yeah, so it's a work in progress, but I'm actually really happy with how we're going so far. And yeah, so I've got my own little book room. I've got another shelf down there, and yeah, I tried to do a moving vlog, but it's just I don't know how people do it. I also have my parents up, so I felt a little bit awkward just being like, hey, can you film this while I'm not there because I'm working full-time and you're helping me out massively. But yeah, so let's get into my January wrap up. So in January I read a total of 9 books, all of which were my Twister chooses. I didn't read any extras. Having that 2 weeks to get ready to move sort of threw my plans out the window. Thank God for audiobooks. So I read 3 sci-fi, 3 fantasy, 2 contemporary and non-fiction. I read a total of 3,572 pages, and I read 3 adult and 6 YA. I had 5 5-stars and 4 4-stars. It makes me so happy. I read 3 books physically and 6 I listened to the audiobook whilst reading along physically. Audiobook, collectively, I read in the month 22 hours and 47 minutes of audiobook. So that is not their collective total of how much it should be. That's listening to it on 3.2, 3.3 times speed. I just went through and worked out what that was. So yeah, Sierra was interested to see that stat. So 22 hours and 47 minutes, give or take. That blows my mind. In terms of my goals, I finished off 2 series. I caught up on another 2. I read 3 books that were over 500 pages. I read at least 5 that hauled last year, and I read 1 from my standalone list. So I'm very proud of myself. Let's see if we can keep the momentum up for the rest of the year. Let's dive into the books themselves. So the first one I read started me off on a nice little note, and that is To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. This is like the 3.5 novella, sort of set in the same sort of universe, but not necessarily actually part of the Wayfarer series. This was gifted to me by Wit from Wit and Wisdom, and I'm so thankful to her. This was fulfilling the prompt of book with chicken nuggies, so I had a cup of tea and ate some chocolate and an ice cream whilst reading this. You wouldn't think I'd be able to fit all that in, but yeah. So yeah, this was a 5-star read. I absolutely adored it. I just love Becky Chambers' writing. It just fills me with joy. Next up, I read Gemina by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is the second in the Illuminae files, and this was really interesting. I think out of all of them, this is my least favorite. I don't know. I think I just really loved, I didn't fall in love with Hannah and Nick. I sort of was still in the Kenny and Ezra phase, although they are hilarious. I think also because a drug-inducing psycho parasite is on the loose, and it just makes me really uncomfortable. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed listening to the audiobook and reading along, which I always do for these because they're so fantastic. This was also fulfilling the prompt of Audible for Twister chooses. So I listened to this on Audible. I did 5 out of my 6 audiobooks from Audible. Really happy that I got to this, and yeah, next up, I finally did it. Thank fuck. I adored this. So for anyone that has been around a little while, I keep putting this book off. I don't know what it was. I never picked it up until now, and I'm so happy that I did. This was for the Twister prompt of a 5-star prediction, and my prediction was correct. This was 5 stars. I absolutely adored it. The characters just fill me with so much joy. I need more Laini Taylor in my life. I need these characters and crossover with Daughter and Smoke and Bone. Just to be fair, I still feel like I prefer Daughter of Smoke and Bone more, and I prefer the first book more than this, but I still, I just adore it. It makes me so happy. Like, just these characters, they just, how to do emotion how to do words and articulate feelings and thought. So this was the conclusion to the Strange the Dream of Duology, and yeah, I miss the characters. I miss them so much, and it was so nice being back. Chaos and shiz as per usual, and yeah, overall fantastic read. Next up, I had the prompt of non-fiction, and so I went with Australia Day by Stan Grant. Holy shit, this is amazing. So this was gifted to me by Grace from G Swizzle last year, and I'm so happy that I got to it this month. I think it's so important and so powerful. Stan isn't giving you questions to change the date. So if anyone's not really familiar with Australia, 26th of January is our Australia Day, and it's a time for celebrating the country that we are. However, in recent years, it has come to light that our Indigenous people are not happy with this celebration because they've been oppressed for 200 years. They're still struggling. Australia Day is a white celebration, and that's not okay. So there's been requests to change the date. There's been a few different things that have cropped up, and Stan Grant's essentially going, the question isn't when should we change the date to, or if we should change the date, it's why are people upset? What hasn't been rectified that needs to be fixed to be able to be a cohesive Australia? Like, Australia Day is celebrating one half of the nation. It's celebrating a time of invasion, of oppression. So yeah, I found it very interesting that the way that Stan goes about talking about Australia Day, because it's not really about Australia Day. It's about the oppression of our people. It's about the struggle of belonging and identifying as an Australian. And yeah, really, really powerful. The quotes were absolutely just mind-blowing. I love the way that Stan writes. Our race, for all that it seeks to define us, for all that others cling to, it is a straitjacket. It suffocates and strangles us. That there is a white gaze is true, but we can be trapped in judgment of our own. Those who would revel in race and tell us what to think, who to love and who to be. So yeah, just like any of these tabs just would hit home. 5-star fucking read. Absolutely. If you were an Australian, fucking read this. This should be read in schools. It needs to be promoted. It needs to be talked about. It needs to be listened to, really. There needs to be changes. Stan Grant doesn't have the answers, but he asks the questions to get those people thinking. So yeah, highly, highly recommend. Next up, I have Northern Lights by Philip Pullman. I've lent my copy out to a friend, but I did read this physically and audibly, and I gave it 4 stars. So it was really quite funny because this was, I put Australia Day or Northern Lights into a book club that I'm a part of for my picks, and we went with Northern Lights for that. But I ended up doing Australia Day in my own personal book club. Discord will be linked in the description below. But yeah, one of the members, he fell in love with the series and binge read all 3, has started on the Commonwealth series, absolutely fell in love with it. I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to continue on with the series, but I wasn't blown away with it. I really like the critiques that were there. I really like the discussions that are raised and we can chat about, but as a story and a narrative, definitely a 4-star read. Still really enjoyable. It just didn't hit me in the way that either having that nostalgia or the way that my book club member took it, it just didn't hit me that way. So yeah, overall, not bad. Interesting, we'll finish the series. The audiobook, 5 out of 5. Would recommend listening to it. Full cast, really, really interesting. All the different voices were top notch. Really, really, really loved it. Oh, and Northern Lights was for an adaptation. So the next one took me a little bit by surprise, and this was a colour wheel, and I needed to pick a book that had rose colour on the cover. I also ended up finding in the title with Under Rose Tainted Skies by Louise Gornell. So this is following a girl whose OCD has developed to the point where she really struggles to leave the house. And then a boy next door arrives, and he doesn't see her defined by medical terms or mental health. And yeah, a common critique is love fixes all. And I can see and agree with it, but I feel like that she didn't start making things and changes needed to help with her OCD until a trigger incident. It wasn't the boy going, oh, come outside and be with me, and her being like, okay, or needing to run out to save his life like another particular story. Like, it was, she was not safe because she had been building up these relationships. She had the confidence to be able to go out. At least that's how I take it. I can understand, like, I don't have OCD, never developed any sort of fear to that level, but yeah, so I can't critique on the rep. I just think as a Love Cures All book, it's not as bad as I had thought it to be. Again, some really powerful quotes for mental health representation. It's the idea of relinquishing control that makes them too sticky to swallow. I'm too wrapped up in worrying about everything that could go wrong while these tablets have me half drunk. Like, I feel that. So yeah, I really related to this. It was a great 4-star read, and yeah, do be aware there is a relationship, and that could be like a plot point. It is a main plot point for helping with her mental health, but I'd be curious to hear some more thoughts, and I'll definitely be looking up Own Voices reviews on how they thought it was handled. And yeah, so take it with a grain of salt. Not an Own Voices reviewer. That was just how I interpreted the story. Next up was Bookish and the Beast by Ashley Boston. This is the third in the Once Upon a Con series, which is sort of following different characters at a convention, and every year something happens with a twist on a tale, like Cinderella, The Princess and the Pauper, I think is the name of the second one, and Beauty and the Beast. I love this. So this wasn't necessarily set at the con. There was an event that happened at the con, and then it carries on in the later half of the year. And yes, I love the characters in this. Her dad, what's her name? Rosie. Of course it's Rosie. Rosie's dad is amazing. There is a non-binary character, side character, who goes by they, them pronouns, and it's really adopted into this whenever they're referring to Quinn, I think it is. They're just like, they did this, and instead they want Quinn to run for Homecoming King. So instead of running for Homecoming King, they name it Homecoming Overlord. So, because they were like, I don't want to be a king. That's no. And they're like, how about Overlord? And they're like, yes, I'll do it. I think it was just beautiful. It's a very, very fandom. It's a very, very just in your face retelling, hilarious. I love it. I love it. This is also following a relationship with the villain of this whole Starfield world, and I love me villains. I love villains. They're just, yes. So, and then Rosie, she actually has glasses, but she mostly wears contacts. So yeah, me in a nutshell, the awkward, the clumsy, just everything. And yeah, so 5-star read for the prompt of Sweet and Fluffy, and I'm so happy I read this. Thank you, Ash, for buying it for me. Next up was the prompt of recommended reads. So that's one that has been recommended multiple times. You could interpret it whether Ash has recommended it, or a singular friend, or BookTube as a whole, which is what I went for. House on the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Holy fucking shit. This book is perfection. So I adored every minute of reading and listening to this. The characters and the children themselves are so lovely and wonderful. It is the most wholesome read I could think of, parallel to Tea Dragon Society. It feels like coming home to a book for the first time. And how Linus is so funny in the most unassuming way. Arthur just chef kiss perfection. Everything about this, I have no words to describe it because I just adore it so much. This is set in an orphanage for children with magical powers like things, and apparently this house where they're at, the orphanage, they are top tier, most evil children ever, and or most dangerous, or it would be bad if they were known about. This just shows appearances aren't always what it seems. It's telling everyone that you can't live your life in a drudgery just following the rules, because the rules aren't necessarily designed for everyone's benefit. Think open-mindedly, be kind, go on adventures, and just live the life that you want to live. And that is so powerful and so beautiful, and I can't stop smiling because it's just so wholesome and I love it. And thank you, Sierra, for sending this to me, because I can't deal, like, at all. You could also say that it was recommended by Sarah because she sent it directly to me to read, so we'll go with that. And yeah, just I am not a functioning human when it comes to this book. And then finally, the last book that I read was Obsidio by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This was the third in the Illuminate series, and I finished it off. I really enjoyed this. I think pulling all of the stories from Illuminate and Gemina together just worked really well. I liked that there wasn't any parasites in this one. That made me feel a lot better. I love that it's told in mixed media, and then listening to the audiobook is always so fascinating. I feel like this was a really good conclusion. It introduced some new characters that I thought was adorable, and yeah, just everything about it was really nice. I don't know, I think it was very interesting and definitely a 4-star. The series as a whole was definitely a 4-star series for me, which is great because I really don't like Jay and his writing style, so to have a 4-star series is good. I did think that I would enjoy this more than his other books. There was not as much kissy and more like action, which was great. And I love the illustrations in these. I think they're by Marie Lu. So the illustrations in this are done by Marie Lu, which is absolutely mind-blowing because they are stunning. Those. And yeah, then also we have a sassy AI that is slightly murderous, so that's always good. And this was for the prompt of partner pick. I pulled it out from my big book jar, so I needed to get to it, so Ash kindly picked it for me, so then I could read it, and it fit in nicely with a prompt. I could have done Audible and then him chose Gemina, or I could have made it work, but yeah, it was nice that he picked this for me because it made my life easier. So these are the books that I read in the month of January, and I'm so proud. I think for a while I was a little bit disappointed that I had only read 9 books, and then I conceptualized it. I've read 3,500 pages or something close to that, and I moved. We were unpacked by Monday the 1st of February. Thanks mostly to Mom. This got done a little bit later, but yeah, for the most part I did that. I'm not a kind of person that can listen to audiobooks while doing other things. I much prefer to sit down and read it and just listen to it and take it all in. So I really didn't listen to many audiobooks. I was getting up at 6 AM, going to bed at midnight, so I could fit in like half an hour to an hour of reading time in that. So yeah, the fact that I got this all done, pretty fucking happy with that. So yeah, let me know in the comments, how did your January reading go? Did you start off 2021 the way that you wanted to? I think this was an awesome TBR, and I'm so happy that I got to it. I feel like I've hit my goals, I'm doing well, I've read big books, which was something that I didn't realize I wanted to focus on this year, but I'm really enjoying it. So we might be keeping that momentum up and just having smaller quantity, higher page counters, and hopefully still high quality. So yeah, if you like this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of this mess, feel free to subscribe. And I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!